meeting to order. Doug Fallon, I'd like to invite you to come forward and lead us in the pledge. We always like to call a man in uniform to lead us in the pledge. And he has the Bike Roswell uniform on. If we'd all stand and face the flag.
How about right here?
That works.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Tonight is our fifth Monday meeting, and we're going to be recognizing everyone in the audience who wishes to say something or ask any questions of council. But before we do, I would like to invite the winners of our poster contest to come forward. And who's going to be introducing the subject? Mr. Mooring.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is our second annual poster contest. As you know, next week will be National Drinking Water Week, and we have done a contest for elementary school and middle school students, and all of our applicants are here tonight. They've done a marvelous job, as you will see when you see their posters. As I mentioned to some of them, sometimes I'm called down for being too long-winded in explaining things, but these posters very succinctly explain how treated water is done, and they've done a great deal of research, and these kids now know probably more about water treatment than 99% of Americans. So we can be very proud of them. The program was organized by Vicki Culbreth, our environmental education coordinator, and Alice Champagne, our water resources manager. And Vicki will now announce the winners and all of our students.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So in honor of Safe Drinking Water Week, we asked elementary and middle school students to create an education poster explaining the process of drinking water to their peers. And as you see, when they bring the posters up, they clearly did a lot of research and spent a lot of time, so we're very proud that they're here. First, I'd like to announce our winners of the poster contest in the grades 3 through 5 category. It's Matthew and Megan Greenberg from Fulton Sunshine Academy. And our grades 6 through 8 winner is Cassandra Manrique from Elkins Point Middle School. And then we have some honorable mentions. Brandon Bettinger and Christopher Humphrey from Hillside Elementary. Meghana Maduri from Fulton Sunshine Academy. And Ria Deswani from Elkins Point Middle School. And we have a couple of students who weren't able to make it tonight, and their posters are still in the other room. But thank you so much to all of you students for participating in our contest.
Students, before you leave, my council always likes to get their picture taken with cute people so they look better. So if my council would like to join these winners down in the front of the dais, I'd love to join you. Y'all need to step forward so the council can get behind you. We want you and your posters up front, and we'll get behind you. There you go. Hey, everybody. posters downstairs?
Yes, sir, in the rotunda.
All right, they'll be hanging for the rest of the week?
For the week, and then we'll have them at the Drinking Water Festival, which will be this weekend, Saturday.
One more public announcement before we go to the open session, while we still have an audience. This is another water subject. Now, Kent really should have starred in this because he's the one with real talent, but he was unavailable because he was on set.
Hi there, Drippy. Thank you.
Technical difficulties. We'll see if we can get this running. I did not warn them of this. This was a last-minute thing.
Finance director is filling in for IT.
Well, Julie, do we need to do...
Great idea.
Wait, start over again. We need to get the whole thing.
Keep off that sidewalk instead of that hose.
Hi there, Drippy. Great idea. Thank you.
That's better. Mayor Wood, don't waste water washing just a few of your bow ties. Wait until you have a full load to do laundry.
Drippy, that's a great idea. Thank you. I will wait until I get a full load.
Mayor Wood, please use the dishwasher. The dishwasher only uses 8 to 12 gallons of water to get the job done. But doing them by hand takes 20. And fill that dishwasher full before you start it.
So, Drippy, I can do it the easier way and save water too?
Yep.
Well, Drippy, that's a great idea. Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Mayor Wood. Drippy has helped me save a lot of water. Sign up for the Mayor's Challenge Pledge today and let's all save a precious resource.
It's easy. Just go to mywaterpledge.com to sign the pledge. You'll be eligible to win a Toyota Prius, $1,000 shopping spree at Lowe's, a custom sprinkler system, and much more.
Come on, Roswell, do your part.
Let's all be water smart.
All right, Stu, you want to follow up with where we are and our challenge and what we're asking folks to do?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. At mywaterpledge.com, or if you can't remember that, you can go to the city website, www.roswellgov.com, and click on their H2O Conservation Pledge, and it will lead you to that pledge. It will take you less than 2 minutes, and you can go through there and say, I pledge to take shorter showers, or as the mayor did, brush off my driveway instead of hosing it down, and so forth. And by doing that, we can take our appropriate place in the leadership of water conservation organizations around the country. As of the current time, we are number 5 in the nation, and with a major push by the end of the month, which is tomorrow, so you need to do it tonight if possible. And I understand they have tracking devices, so you can't do it more than once under the same address. But anyway,
But you can do it as multiple times as if you have many addresses.
yes, sir.
Remember that.
You would have to ask Keith, but I think that's correct. So we encourage you to do that, and we also encourage you to come out to the water plant on Saturday for our Drinking Water Festival. Among other things, we will demonstrate how much water you can get for $1. You can get about a pint of water in a bottle at the convenience store, or you can get about 270 gallons of Roswell water. So you make the choice if you want to have it delivered to your home, treated, purified beyond the standards that is required in bottled water.
Roswell water, there is none better.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's have a hand for the Roswell Water Department. All right, this is our fifth Monday open session night. If you would like to speak, if you'll raise your hand, I'll ask you to come forward. We would like you to fill in a speaker card before you leave tonight. So if you'll come forward, please, and give us your name. Yes, come forward to the microphone. You give us your name and address, and the floor is yours.
Hi, Mayor Wood. My name is Fulvia Mancini, Elsa, and I live at 248 Chadsford Way. That's Holcomb's Crossing community. Okay. Well, I came here to you. I really would like to listen after so many years of this problem, which is making my life very difficult. So I would like to make 3 points. The first point is when I moved here, well, I've been living in Roswell for 20 years, and 14 of which I've been living in Holcomb's Crossing. I moved in 1999. I paid premium for the property. It was a nice property, and it was, peaceful and everything. Point 2. Over time, this community has deteriorated, and as it deteriorated, crime increased. My homeowner association targeted my area due to the proximity to Aspen Point apartments, and they assumed that by gating my property, it would stop the trespassing and lower the crime and the loitering. In doing so, they created a situation for me and the residents along the border, which is Chadsford Way, and on the other side of Chadsford Way, henceforth using the first row of townhouses as a barricade to secure the rest of the community. Now, this was unfair solution because none of these properties are safer from crime and loitering. Not only the property value of our units has been affected, but it is also a security concern because all the perimeter units, including mine, cannot be accessed from the front door to the back area and vice versa. This also becomes an issue when the police were called in several times responding to complaints and could not access the front of the property because of a permanent fence there used as a barricade. Well, the root problem to this whole situation is the entrance of Aspen Point Apartments, which is located right inside our community. So I am asking for a study of the layout of these two communities and find a way to relocate the entrance of Aspen Point outside Holcomb's Crossing community. Therefore, we can separate Aspen Point Apartments and Holcomb's Crossing rather than separate our own community into partition. And then the other problem is Old Holcomb Bridge, which for a long time it does not have any sidewalks. It's just very dangerous, and it's curvy, so you go around the corner. I always make a point. I drive very slow and pay attention, but some people don't, and those people are forced. The people that don't drive are forced to walk in the middle of the street. And I had myself experience. I had to go to the airport last month, and then I came back. I didn't have a ride, and I walked with my suitcase along the street, and it's just definitely very dangerous. So these two problems, I think they need, I have been feeling like a second-hand citizen because nobody's listening to me about this first problem, especially because it affects tremendously my life and the life of my neighbor and our community. So I'm asking to please, help with this problem.
Well, let's try to address each of those issues.
Okay.
Old Holcomb Bridge Road, on sidewalks, this council is spending over $500,000 a year on sidewalks. And the priority has been set really trying to do two things first. One is trying to we have sidewalks and there's a short break in those sidewalks, trying to connect existing sidewalks where there's a small connection.
The other area of priorities is the first goal was to try to get sidewalks to our schools and our parks from existing neighborhoods. Now, I'm not sure where Old Holcomb Ridge Road falls on this. I will tell you, this council supports having sidewalks on every street in Roswell. But because of the limited sources, the council only has so much money to spend. So my suggestion to you would be, if you could, Councilmember Betty Price is liaison to the Transportation Department. You might talk to her.
To whom, I'm sorry?
Councilmember Betty Price,
okay.
liaison to the Transportation Department.
Okay.
You might contact her. She might take a look at those sidewalks and see where they are on the list. But again, the council has decided the first priority, try to connect existing sidewalks where there's a short break in the connection. And the second high priority is within proximity to schools and parks where we can encourage children to walk to the schools and parks. That's the second highest priority. And roads that don't meet that criteria are probably going to have to wait until we first get the schools and the parks connected to the neighborhoods.
Well, may I say that, there are a lot of kids there because the buses for the school, they come, and, I would think that you don't even need to just make like a cement type of wall. All you have to do, because there is like on the side of the dirt, the soil, you can kind of, make a path there or something, so the people can, be away from the street.
Well, talk to Councilmember Price,
okay.
And she can see where that fits. And on occasion, we have done some non-concrete sidewalks in our parks, and that may be a possible solution. So talk to her. All right. The Aspen Point, Holcomb Woods entrances, my recollection is that this is on private property.
Exactly. It's on our private property, and there's trespassing every single day.
I understand. Well, here's the point I'm trying to make. The city would love to work with the property owners, but if it's not public right-of-way, it's not within the control of this city to make changes on private property. So as far as the entrances are concerned, that's an issue. As far as the location of the fences, again, I sympathize with you, but unless there is a building code violation, the fences on private property are subject to private property. So on the condominium association, your only redress may be to the condominium association.
I have been trying. So many times, numerous times. I went to the meeting, I did PowerPoint, suggestions, everything. I just can't live like this. Nobody's listening to me. It's not fair. My freedom is at stake here. This has been going on for years and years and years, and nobody's listening. The homeowner association is not listening to me.
I sympathize with you, but the limitation is, if it is private property, the city probably is not in the position to tell that private property owner where to put their fences as long as it meets the building code. So it's outside of the public realm.
But Chestford Way is a city, it's not private. We don't really have it.
Again, you might talk to Councilman Price. Councilman Orleans may have an idea on this.
I was just thinking that maybe she could talk to Alice in Community Development and see where the fence was put in and if that was done properly, if there's something that may not have been done the way it should have been according to the plot that was submitted that's been on record with the city. So I just thought it might be something to look into. And Alice is in the last row in the back on the right side.
Okay.
So we'll see if there is any building code violations or not. But if they are in compliance with the law and it's private property, there's little we can do. If it's public property, it's a whole different story. Yes, Councilmember Wynn.
Yes, I also heard something that the police officers cannot access. Hold on, just a moment. And if there is a concern about our public safety people being able to access these units, I think that's something else that maybe community development can look at with our public safety people. to make sure that the access is there that's required for public safety. Maybe that's something that we can look at also.
Right, I feel very unsafe, unfortunately, because my door is one of the first one right there on the street where people can, come right there, and I couldn't, there is a fence. I'm prisoner in my own home.
Well, I encourage you to talk with
I will
Alice
talk
Wakefield and Councilmember Price.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Who'd like to speak next? Yes, come forward, please.
My name is Janet Russell. I live at 260 Willow Springs Drive here in Roswell. 2 points. First of all, I love that we were honoring water conservation today. After the mayor's ride yesterday, I took all the cardboard from the breakfast over to the recycling center in the downpour of rain that we had. And the fellows were unloading it from the car so I could come back. And I noticed that on the overhang where you pull up for electronics and plastic and cardboard, there is a gutter downspout that comes perpendicular off of the overhang and pours down right on top of the people who are unloading their cars. It was like a fireman's faucet pouring out of there yesterday. And I thought it was pretty funny that we're at the recycling center and we're wasting water. I wondered where the rain barrels are that the city very nicely sells every spring. Why isn't there a downspout connected to that water gutter to act as a sort of passive educational lesson for people driving up that yes, indeed, you can save your water from your downspout and use it in your garden? In addition to that, you got soaking wet because the poor people who work in there are in and out all day long. And, I mean, it wasn't a dribble. It was this wide, pouring out like a gush. So, a matter of practicality, if we want to teach people to save water, you sometimes have to put it right in their face and give them an example of how it can be done. And you do save them. I have rain barrels. I've had them since the city started. I could teach everybody here how to save water. You know how I am about water. I think Mr. Mooring knows how much I use. $4 a month of water. And I have a garden and a clean house and a clean body. The second thing about water, Mayor Wood made an interesting comment with the young children who were in there, and they were super. He talked about, and Mr. Mooring talked about how much a bottle of water costs in a convenience store and how many gallons you can buy for $1. And several years ago, I approached Janet Lieberman, who I really like, and I brought her the first reusable shopping bag. And we gave them at the first mayor's ride. They weren't even on the horizon in America. I had been in South Africa where they sell them in the grocery store for $1 for a Kids in the Parks program, because there are children in South Africa who grew up in the city who've never seen a giraffe or a zebra, just like kids in the city here have never seen a cow. So I brought back one of the water bottles, and I brought back one of the reusable bags, and I suggested to the city at a council meeting that this city get proactive. This was about 7 years ago, and that they make a welcome kit that they make available for probably $1, and they sell them a reusable shopping bag and a reusable water bottle with the logo on it, to teach people, again, that their natural resources, they need to take ownership of their own natural resources. Well, Janet took the idea for the reusable shopping bag, and we took it to the mayor's ride, and the riders that year flipped. They were so excited. CWS, our waste management service, partnered with us that year, and we gave them away instead of using plastic grocery bags to put our swag in. I just want to remind the city that, you can have posters and you can do everything, but you can't, I hate this metaphor, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. Well, you can also teach them by giving them these water bottles or selling them and taking that $1, whatever it costs. We have people in the city that produce those kinds of promotional items. Do it. Get on the bandwagon. You've got concerts at the river coming up. You have a Live After 5. The word festival is now part of our daily lexicon. Don't just talk about it, do it. And I think by showing, in San Francisco it's illegal, but not illegal. Yes, they're prohibited. You cannot use shopping bags, those grocery ones that you get every day, the paper ones. They're not allowed anymore. You have to use a reusable shopping bag, and I proposed that a long time ago. But I guess I was ahead of my time again. The second part that I wanted to discuss was, so think about the gutter. It's supposed to pour rain Wednesday and Thursday again, and on the weekend. Go stand under it, under the recycling center, and say, where is the downspout with the rain barrel? The second thing I would like to just bring up is, I am just, on one hand, I'm flabbergasted and amazed that in less than 90 days, after you approved to use the remainder of the $467,000 we got from MARTA to put in a sidewalk on Norcross Street and to connect a crosswalk on Highway 9 here to a path to the back of the parking lot so that people who drive to Roswell to enjoy our restaurants won't be too inconvenienced. You use MARTA money to do that. I guess driving's more important than actually using MARTA. But my biggest surprise was, one, they did a great job. In less than 90 days, you went from approval of the money to they swept the streets and it was ready for Alive After 5. That must have been the ETA on that project. And it's beautiful. I'm not criticizing that. What I'd like to know is, how did they get GDOT to sign off on that crosswalk in less than 90 days when I've been waiting 3 years for a project at the corner of Jones Drive and Highway 9 where the coffee house is, merely to soften a corner so that we don't have to go into the northbound lane when it's 2 lanes northbound at a right angle. There's an accident every week there. I've been told for 3 years by transportation that GDOT moves real slow, Janet, and you're just going to have to be real patient. Well, I think 3 years, I'm going to get a shovel and a bag of gravel and do it myself. That's how small of a project it is. So I'd like to know, how did GDOT get to sign off in this massive project in less than 90 days, but we have to wait 3 years? And it's not a crosswalk. It's just easing a corner so we can turn a little bit easier and not be hit by oncoming traffic. Anybody got any response on GDOT's response time?
Department. Does anyone in Transportation Department prepared to answer that question? The answer is our Transportation Department does not know.
Okay, well, tomorrow I'm going to call
Kay
GDOT.
says she might have an answer.
The construction of the project was short, but the design and approval process has been in the works for probably a year or more. The discussion of how the sidewalk would connect, where the pedestrian
So you're
crossing
talking about
would go.
the sidewalk here, between here and Canton Street?
Which sidewalk, Kay? Because they did two. The one on Norcross Street that connects Canton to SR9?
No,
or
I'm
the
talking about this
crosswalk
one
at the
out
City
here.
Hall?
The crosswalk for City Hall.
Across SR9.
Yes, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, ma'am. That's what I'm speaking of, not the one next to it.
Okay.
So that was a long process. There were tweaks to the design. So yes, construction wasn't that long, but that has been in the hopper.
Okay, well, we've been waiting 3 years.
And that I don't have an answer to. I'm not
Well,
familiar with
that's
that
why I
project.
said, if you can get something done, whether it was 1 year in the design, you only approved the money, though, 90 days ago. Maybe 90, 95 days ago at a city council meeting, this council approved using the remainder of the MARTA money to improve this crosswalk section to get to Canton Street so that people wouldn't have to pay for valet parking and that they would pay it in City Hall. Fine. That was a year. 3 years ago, when they put in all the new water lines down the street, they dug up all of 9. And at that time, they dug up in front of the church parking lot. And at that time, I said, before you do anything else, will you soften this curve? The other corner of Jones Drive is softened by the shopping center. Oh, Janet, we don't know. First, they took down the street sign. We didn't even have one for about 3 months. I finally said, you think you could put our street sign back up? We are truly second-class citizens over there. This poor woman that's asked for sidewalks, surely she is impatient. I've only waited 40 years to have a sidewalk. Mrs. Price, by the way, I would love to invite you to take a walk with me down Highway 9 to the river. We have no sidewalk to the river.
Mrs. Russell, I would love it if you would call me when you have these concerns and we could work them out.
Well, I've been working with transportation because that's who I was told I had to work with. And when they put in the water lines and they dug up the street.
I think you know how the process works. We're all assigned to the department. I'd be very happy to work with you, so let's get it solved.
Well, I'm just telling you, Mrs. Price, that for 3 years I've gone to the City of Roswell Department of Transportation because that's who I was directed to by the Water Department at the time. So I don't know if you were the transportation person 3 years ago. It changes, I think, annually or biannually. I'm not holding anyone at fault. I want to know why we're waiting 3 years for a simple project that is a bag of gravel and a shovel and an old woman who could do it.
We're not in a position to answer that for you tonight, but I encourage you to follow up with Councilmember Price. Who would like to speak next? Yes, sir. Come forward.
My name's Eric Schumacher. I live at 145 Prospect Street in Roswell. I want to talk about the Old Roswell Cemetery tonight. I have some handouts that I could distribute. I think I'm one short. I didn't account for.
So which cemetery are we talking about?
This is the cemetery on both sides of Woodstock.
That's the Methodist cemetery. It was the Methodist
Sure,
cemetery.
yes, correct.
Okay, now, thank you for
Can I
identifying.
distribute these?
Please do. If you'll bring them to
Okay,
Kay,
great.
she'll hand them out. You're broken.
So I'd like to talk about the Roswell Cemetery. Old Roswell Cemetery is what it's referred as. And I'll talk a little bit about the history, some new information that I've come to understand through open record search, as well as some title search information, as well as some conversations with people at the city. So, we already understand where the cemetery is, and we know which one we're talking about. A little bit of the history here. The Roswell Cemetery Care Association cared for the cemetery financially from a maintenance perspective until 1997. In April of 1997, the City Council and Mayor unanimously voted to assume care of the cemetery. I think, Jerry, you were around at that time? Okay. It was recommended that the Roswell Cemetery Care Association group continue their work at that point, as far as accepting donations, soliciting donations, etc., and overseeing the care of the cemetery. The city accepted a donation of $135,000 at that point to fund future maintenance of the cemetery. The interest of the funds was to be used for the maintenance. The ownership of the cemetery as a whole at that point wasn't questioned, according to the information I saw in the documents that I retrieved. It was assumed that the cemetery ownership was unknown at that time. There is a Georgia code that gives the city the authority to use money to maintain the cemetery. That's noted in this information. I won't read through that. But the most significant part of that Georgia code is that the city is supposed to or could, provide for reimbursement of funds by billing any legally responsible person or levying upon any of his property or as authorized by local ordinance. If there was a private owner of that cemetery and we're spending public money, that the city could have an ordinance to retrieve that money from that owner. Some new information about the cemetery is that there are new definitions for abandoned. So if there was previous assumption that the cemetery was abandoned or the cemetery as a whole was abandoned, but abandoned means that for which no person can be found who is legally responsible and financially capable of the upkeep of the cemetery. So recent title search shows that there is clear ownership of a portion of the cemetery. I spoke with Jeff Pruitt, who has been partially responsible for the contracts and such for the cemetery upkeep, and he was unaware of the ownership of a portion of that cemetery.
Just for clarification, which portion, is it a tract or is it cemetery plots that are in the private?
It's an entire lot with a proper property ID.
Do you know what the dimensions of that lot are?
I do. It's in this handout.
Okay.
They're a couple pages farther. And I can certainly put this on the screen if anybody's interested.
It would be helpful to
understand
understand which portion are we talking about in this discussion.
So if you go to the first map that you come across in the packet, it'll be the yellow highlighted piece of property.
Okay.
Which is also notated below from the Fulton County Tax Assessor's Office.
That's behind
Lucky's
and
correct.
Thumbs Up. Okay.
Correct.
Thank you for orienting me.
Certainly.
Is this already platted for cemetery, or is this vacant land?
There are plots, yes, and there are frequent internments.
So this is in the Claire and C.C. Foster.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. That helps.
Certainly. So the city, from my perspective, Jeff Pruitt was unaware of the ownership of this plot until I brought the title search information to him. The owner of the property and the owner's lawyer has visited this property recently, so they know they own it, they've been to it, they've seen it, they walked around it, they understand that. Portions of the property have been sold as recently as 1998, which is after the city has taken responsibility for the maintenance. Plots have been sold, like actual cemetery plots have been sold by the current owners. Care for this privately owned portion of the overall cemetery is estimated about 15% of the overall square footage of the entire cemetery. There is no responsible person or entity managing the activities and interments of the cemetery. So, I live right next to the cemetery. I see interments maybe once a month. There doesn't appear to be anybody who is managing, accepting fees, organizing that, ensuring it's the right person, right plot, etc. So my concerns. The city is perhaps inadvertently spending money maintaining a private property without due diligence and finding out who actually owned this property there. The Roswell Cemetery Care Association has been dissolved since 2010 and no longer solicits funds. The city is missing opportunities to augment this cemetery care fund and care for the historic cemetery by collecting money from property owners, collecting interment fees that are normally associated when somebody's interned for the care of the overall property. And there's a lack of a donation vehicle now that the Cemetery Care Association is no longer functioning. I don't believe the city is actually soliciting funds to care for that cemetery long term. The privately owned portion of the cemetery is not within the historic district according to the maps. This is a little confusing to understand according to the map, and there is another map a few pages back from the one when we just looked at. This shows that the historic district kind of cuts directly through the cemetery. So I'm not quite sure if that means anything or why a portion of that cemetery is not historic and a portion is. There's no oversight with respect to who or what is buried where and how in the cemetery. So there appears to be shallow graves, pet graves, etc. in that cemetery, which is probably not something that we want to have happening long term or even now. There is drug use in the cemetery that I witnessed. My backyard is bordering the cemetery, and I do see people using drugs in the cemetery on occasion. Adult activity has been witnessed as recently as Saturday night. So I was in my backyard, and there were people in the cemetery, and ironically, it's very much near Jeff Pruitt's uncle's plot there, and I asked them to kindly leave and told them that there's closes at night, and they thought that they had a right to be there. And anyway, I won't go further into that. An active urban camp was found in the adjacent undeveloped lot by Roswell PD recently. So 110 Woodstock, which is just next to the property. Somebody has been perhaps living there, drinking. So that was recently uncovered. I don't believe there's a police report. We could ask Roswell PD more about that. New bars in the area are increasing late night activity in the cemetery. Perhaps you guys don't know, but there are no sidewalks on Woodstock Street from the Midtown overlay to Canton Street, and the only way really to make from that area to Canton Street is to walk through the cemetery. Additionally, there's more activity in the area around Lucky's, and there are no barriers between the Lucky's parking area and the cemetery, and people frequently walk through there into the cemetery. It is suggested that graves exist on the adjacent 110 Woodstock property, which is currently pending sale and will probably be developed at some point. So that is a concern around maintaining the historic nature of these cemeteries and protecting the graves that might be in that location. So my suggested next steps are, will the city organize and assess the current position on the cemetery? Will the city identify and contact existing owners of the cemetery and ask them to maintain their property? Will the city create an ordinance to support collecting money for maintenance not provided by the legal owners per the state ordinance or per state code? Will the city take action to ensure that there is responsible oversight for any and all interments in the cemetery? Will the city define roles and responsibilities for all aspects of the property? Will the city ensure the safety of the area? Would Jeff Pruitt reinstate the Roswell Cemetery Care Association or a similar group to help ensure our cemetery is maintained over time? He was actually the president of that group that was dissolved by the state for non-payment of the incorporation fees. Would the city consider requiring bordering fences or barriers to increase security, safety, and preservation? So I've got another section in here about what I've done. I won't read that just for time, because there's a lot of information here, and I do have more. But the following paper after this is just some supporting documentation.
You clearly are the expert on the Roswell Cemetery at this time in this room. You raise a lot of good points. We're not in a position to respond to those point by point tonight. I think it does bear looking into. Councilmember Orleans, being liaison to the Rec Department, and this is the closest thing that comes under Rec Department, I'm going to hope that you follow up on this. And Mr. Davidson, I know you're hiding over there, but
I'm here because of Mr. Davidson.
Mr.
Actually,
Davidson needs to advise us on.
Are you sure cemeteries don't fall under administration down there?
I believe our recreation department is maintaining the cemetery, Joe, which means, Jerry, you're back to you.
Just teasing.
These are all good points. I'm not sure what our options are, but I think I appreciate your looking into it. I appreciate your bringing it to our attention, and I hope that Councilmember Orleans and Mr. Davidson work with you on this, and Councilmember Orleans comes forward with some great ideas on how we can improve our management, because by default we have become the manager of this cemetery.
Yeah. Thank you.
And I would encourage you to work with our funeral homes and see if you can enlist their help, because I know that if they're interring people in this, when they do inter people, it's probably one of those funeral homes. I know there's still a lot of private plats over there, but you know a lot more about this cemetery than I do.
More than I really want to know, actually.
By default, we've inherited it, and I think we need to manage it.
Thank you, Eric. We'll look into it and see what options we've got and what information we need. You've provided a lot of it for us, so thank you.
I mean, I pledge my time to address this for our community.
Well, I would pledge Jerry Orland's time, but I cannot. But I can pledge David Davidson's time and my commitment to make sure that we follow through on it.
And since the mayor's grown up here and he knows all the history, I'm sure he'll help me on this whole thing, too.
Well, we noticed that when the City of Roswell took over the Roswell Cemetery Care Association, the motion to do that was by Councilmember Orleans.
It was by Councilman Tate. I seconded the motion.
Mr. Orleans seconded. No, I said Mr. Orleans seconded the motion, so he has a long history over there. Thank you for bringing that attention, and I encourage you to work with Councilmember Orleans and Mr. Davidson, and pledge to you I will support their efforts.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Who would like to speak next? Yes, come forward, please.
Good evening, council members and mayor and city administrator. I just wanted to make a quick little request. As I was sitting here, I know we're getting ready to read a proclamation. That's why we're all up here in our funny, skinny outfits that you saw us all wearing yesterday. I've noticed several bikes, especially at the Grimes Bridge, Old Roswell Road intersection, being chained up to the MARTA signs and various other signs at the MARTA stops. And there's 2 bikes that are chained up there, and I think Councilmember Price is working on some budget to get some bike racks installed and things, but I wanted to see if we couldn't make this a formal request to make sure we get some bike racks at the MARTA stops. It's getting a little unsightly to see all these bikes chained chained up like that to signs, and we'd like to see that. And on the cemetery, we have a beverage tour that's starting that happens a lot. We might be able to, instead of getting $1 off our beer, maybe work with raising some money that way, because we use that cemetery cut through to be safe to get down to Green Street so we can get down to Canton Street and our other beverage stops.
We may have to put a toll on the sidewalk. It's cheaper than a DUI. Regarding the bicycles, I encourage you and the other cyclists in Bike Roswell to tell us where your recommendations are. It's good to know that people are using those, riding their bicycles using MARTA, and when we do have evidence of a demand, the council did approve $10,000 for bike racks, and so we're now reviewing where they should go in. So I encourage you to make your recommendations.
Okay, we'll put out a request to keep the eyes on the street and gather those spots and submit those to Steve Asenbrand.
Because we want to put them where they're used.
Okay, thank you.
And when are we making a decision on that, Councilmember Price? Do you know when we're going to be? I know we had a work session in which we identified some potential locations. Do you know
may I speak to that?
I'm addressing.
Thank you. Yeah, last year in the mid-year budget, we appropriated $10,000 for bike racks, and since that time we have asked people where would be good locations to put them, and I think we've expended and are ready to receive $7,000 worth of these new racks, and they're the ones in the shape of the R. We've also looked at some more decorative bike racks that have been seen around the country. I think I showed you a picture of one of them. And if people are inclined to combine a functional item along with a beautification item, then I would encourage you to lobby my fellow council members so that in this year's budget we can get a little more money to do that. But as far as the actual locations, I think we're keeping a log of requests, and then we'll start putting them out when we feel like there's the best need for them.
I'll see what I can do to get on the Bike Roswell agenda, and we'll make sure that we discuss that and come up with an action item and assign somebody to help communicate with you.
Don't delay, because we're discussing the budget tonight.
Okay. Well, we could definitely help you with that.
Great.
All right. Thank you.
Who'd like to speak next? Yes, come forward, please.
Lynn McIntyre, 2210 Steeplechase Lane, Roswell. We've requested a meeting with Stephanie Moody from the Fulton County Library Board to ask some questions about the East Roswell Library timetable. I don't know if any of you have any updates about when the groundbreaking will take place, or we've been told nothing. Nothing is on the website, nothing is on the press release about that. It's just kind of gone very quiet. Do you have any updates?
We do not have any inside information. I have spoken with Stephanie. I do understand that we're at the top of the list, but we don't have any dates.
Well, there are concerns, and we've been asked for information for that community, and we can't tell them anything, so just wondering. So I also have a couple of birthday cards, and I think that oftentimes public officials don't get told thank you. So Councilwoman, I can't even read, Wynn, happy birthday last week. And
happy birthday,
Councilman Orleans is this coming weekend. So audience, say thank you to your council members once in a while.
Thank you. Council members are real people, and they do have birthdays. Yes, Councilmember Price.
Point of personal privilege.
Yes.
I am no longer having birthdays.
Who would like to speak next? If I don't see any hands up, we're going to call an end to the Fifth Monday meeting. We'll call a special